Every single day, we participate in a massive global ritual. We wake up to an artificial alarm, commute through concrete jungles, and exchange 40 to 60 hours of our week for numbers on a screen, all just to pay for shelter and food. We look back at our ancient prehistoric ancestors and feel a sense of pity. We've all seen the museum exhibits or the Hollywood movies, dirty, miserable cavemen, constantly running from saber-toothed tigers, freezing in caves, starving, and working themselves to the bone just to survive another day. But what if I told you that our view of primitive life is entirely wrong? What if the people living in the Stone Age actually worked less than you do, slept more, enjoyed hours of daily leisure, and had a better work-life balance? Today, we are stripping away the myths of Hollywood. We're going back 30,000 years to look at a day in the life of a prehistoric hunter-gatherer. And we're going to find out exactly how they spent their time. Prepare to be a little jealous. In 1966, an anthropologist named Marshall Solins did something radical. He looked at the data coming out of surviving hunter-gatherer groups, like the Juhansi of the Kalahari Desert. He calculated exactly how many hours a day they spent securing food, building shelter, and staying alive. The result shocked the academic world. Solins labeled hunter-gatherers the original affluent society. Why? Because to meet all of their daily nutritional and physical needs, they only needed to work roughly 3 to 4 hours a day. That's a 15 to 20-hour work week. How is that possible? Well, think about how nature works. Nature is a giant open-air grocery store, and early humans knew every single aisle. The bulk of ancient time was spent gathering. This was the true backbone of the human diet, usually handled by women, children, and older members of the tribe. They spent a few hours a morning walking through their territory, collecting wild grains, berries, nuts, edible roots, and even insects. And here's the kicker, it wasn't grueling. Anthropologists note that foraging trips look less like a factory shift and more like a casual hike with friends. They chatted, they shared gossip, and they took breaks. If a tree was full of ripe figs, they sat under it, ate their fill, and took a nap. Then there was the hunt. Hunting was primarily a male activity, and it took a massive amount of physical stamina and strategic planning. But it wasn't an everyday chore. Early humans used a technique called persistence hunting. Because humans are built for long-distance running and can sweat to cool down, they would literally walk and jog after an animal for hours, tracking it through heat until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. It was intense, yes, but a successful hunt meant a massive windfall of protein and fat. One large deer or prehistoric bison could feed a band of 30 people for days. Once the meat was brought back, the hunters didn't go back out the next morning. They stayed in camp, rested, and ate. So if they only spent 3 to 4 hours a day getting food, what did they do with the rest of their daylight hours? Welcome to the ultimate maker space. Prehistoric people were the master craftsmen of the ancient world. Everything they wore, held, or slept under had to be made from scratch. A huge chunk of their afternoon was dedicated to what we might call camp chores, but it was done at a highly relaxed pace. First, there was tool making. Shaping stone tools, a process called flint knapping, is an incredibly precise science. One wrong strike and hours of work shattered. Ancient humans sat together in the shade, sharing techniques, passing down the art of turning a block of volcanic glass into a razor-sharp butcher knife. Then there was fashion and shelter. Before the invention of synthetic fabrics, transforming a stiff animal hide into soft, wearable, waterproof clothing was a long, multi-step process. Hides had to be scraped clean of fat, cured, smoked, and softened. They used bone needles and thread made from animal tendons to sew heavy winter coats or lightweight summer wraps. They also had to process their food. Raw nature isn't always easily digestible. They spent afternoons cracking stubborn nuts with heavy stones, grinding wild seeds into flour on flat rocks, or setting up smoke racks over the fire to dry thin strips of meat so they wouldn't spoil. What makes this different from modern work is autonomy. There was no boss, no quota. If you felt tired, you put the hide down and finished it tomorrow. But the most profound shift in how ancient people spent their time happened when the sun went down. Before humans tamed fire, our ancestors went to sleep when it got dark to avoid nocturnal predators. But once we brought fire into the camp, we artificially extended the day. Fire gave us the nightlife. And this is where human culture was truly born. Without phones, TVs, or books, the campfire was the center of entertainment and education. This was the era of oral storytelling. Elders didn't just tell stories for fun. They were passing down the survival code of the tribe. Through songs and mythologies, they taught the younger generation where the water holes were during a drought, which plants were poisonous, how the stars aligned to signal the changing seasons, and the history of their ancestors. Looking at this lifestyle, a massive question arises. If hunter-gatherers had a 20-hour work week, plenty of sleep, rich social lives, and constant creative outlets, why did we ever stop? Why did humans abandon this lifestyle to become farmers, laborers, and office workers? Historians call this transition the agricultural revolution, which happened around 12,000 years ago. And many modern thinkers consider it a bit of a trap. When humans figured out how to domesticate plants and animals, we could suddenly produce way more food in 1 square mile. The population boomed, but agriculture required brutal, back-breaking labor. Instead of walking through the woods for a few hours picking whatever was ripe, humans had to spend 12 hours a day weeding fields, digging irrigation, ditches, clearing rocks, and worrying about droughts and crop failures. Farming didn't give us more leisure time, it took it away. It locked us into a cycle of constant, repetitive labor to sustain a larger society. It led to the rise of kingdoms, taxes, social hierarchies, and eventually the modern 9 to -5. Now, let's be fair, prehistoric life wasn't a perfect paradise. Infant mortality was high, a broken leg could be a death sentence, and dental care didn't exist. We shouldn't romanticize the past to the point of ignoring the massive benefits of modern medicine, air conditioning, and global connection. But understanding how ancient people spent their time gives us a vital mirror to look at our own lives. Our bodies and brains are still biologically identical to those Stone Age hunter-gatherers. We are hardwired to want plenty of sleep, to move our bodies through nature, to work autonomously, and to spend long, uninterrupted hours connecting with a close-knit community around a metaphorical campfire. The next time you feel overwhelmed by your endless to-do list, your overflowing inbox, or the pressure of the modern grind, remember that for 99% of human history, this wasn't the norm. We weren't designed to be cogs in a machine. We were designed to forage, to create, to tell stories, and above all, to rest.